Welcome to the Hoops Postgame Show here on 93.7 The Ticket. We are celebrating a Nebraska 80-72 hard-fought overtime comeback victory. The second top 10 win for Nebraska this season, almost assuredly, other than a complete collapse. It looks like this team's going dancing because that resume is looking mighty fine. I'm Jake Bachman, joined by Husker Hall of Famer Erick Strickland here to celebrate the victory. Strick, man, what a roller coaster ride that was. What are your initial thoughts from the big Husker victory?
Man, I was at the stadium, and it was looking really frustrating early. A lot of carelessness, a lot of turnovers, rebounded. Just didn't seem to have the energy that was matched the energy with Wisconsin, and got down. But that's what CJ's for, man. CJ embraced his role as a sixth man, and he came in and they came out in the second half, still making some careless turnovers. They got to really address that part because it's not really anything major that Wisconsin was doing. It was just especially the little run that Chucky had all by himself.
Back steals and scores.
Just kind of lackadaisical in the past. But hey, listen, they overcame adversity tonight and had great moments of their own. Josiah Alec and Sam Hoiberg making great effort plays on the defensive side. Getting Gary back. You obviously saw at the end, securing rebounds when they need them. Those are all big things, and they all played a part towards the end of the game, and they made free throws down the stretch, which could have cost them because they did miss a lot of free throws tonight as well.
Yeah, and it was, there's a couple of stats that kind of come out of this game that if you're watching the broadcast was mentioned often that are just kind of historical here. Wisconsin was 120-0 since the year 2000 when leading by 15 or more at half. And you think about all those Bo Ryan and now Greg Gard teams since then that have just, it's been a consistent program that just kind of grinds you out. So you can kind of understand the statistic, but 120-0 for the last 24 years. It just took the 121st team and CJ Wilcher to get that going. That's how amazing this game was and kind of the ups and downs of it. Yeah. There was also a 10+ scoring run by 3 different Wisconsin players. That's different points in this time. So that was amazing. But the other one that they mentioned was the top 6. The first time since 1957, 1958, which was the only other season Nebraska's had 2 top 6 wins in a season. And like I said, there's plenty of time to break down this game, and there's lots to break down. But just overall, when they were interviewing Fred Hoiberg in the post game, and it's a lot harder to do this in basketball than as football, where you say this is what Big's win for the season. This one is like big for the program because this is putting this team, and the win over number 1 already did, but there's still kind of a prove it factor. And now with 2 wins, I could see Nebraska getting plenty of votes to be in the top 25. Because there are a lot of teams kind of in that 5-6 loss range. Some of them get in, some of them don't. And if you have one good win, you can chuck it up to, okay, they had a good night and they're a pretty solid team. 2 wins like this, that moves Nebraska up. It's going to move Nebraska up quite a bit.
Well, you said something that's very important. I think it helps them in the recruiting.
Yeah.
It helps them in transfers. It helps them because Nebraska plays a style of basketball that's fun, right?
Yeah, they do.
A lot of motion, a lot of touches, a lot of people, a lot of ways you can affect the game. Those are important. You're absolutely right, man. This is a huge program win, but it's also a huge resume win. But here's what they haven't done. What is it that they haven't done, Bach? They haven't been able to put it back to back. You have these emotional wins. They've got another chance. Just think of what they could do if they go on the road and take Illinois. Like that for your, not only for your program, for your confidence late in the season, you get the hard road win. You've been elusive to you. You're giving up Minnesota and Rutgers, and you've given up a lot of the easier ones, but you get to go and get the hard one. I want to see a back-to-back effort. I don't want to see a lackluster, lackadaisical effort. They go on the road. Oh, we got the big one. And, no, go. Let's stack days. Let's stack wins. Go take that, because the rest of the season after the Illinois game, the rest of it are gettable.
Yeah. No other top 25 teams left.
Yeah, Northwestern, that'd be a great quad. Basically would present possibly a quad 1 win for them.
They pushed Purdue again last night.
Yeah, in overtime.
Good squad.
that could be a good one to get. But if you don't, that's okay. But it's them other ones. It's Michigan. You got to get twice. There's a worst team in your league right now. You've got to get them twice. You got a chance to get them on the road, and then you've got another one. You've got Rutgers that comes in, revenge for them. None of them are top-tier teams after that. So this is an opportunity for them. They won. I said if they split, I thought they've got a great chance. They did that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does take a little bit of pressure off, but there's still going to be there's enough motivation, I think, with that 0-5 Big Ten record that they'll be very focused against Illinois. But just, again, a lot to break down small picture here, but it's such a big picture win for Nebraska that it's kind of interesting to start off with that. But to your point, you already said it, but we're going to continue saying it throughout the night. CJ Wilcher was a bucket, and he was, I think he started 5 for 5 from beyond the arc. He got fouled and then hit another 3 from NBA range. No second thoughts about it. And really his second half performance really sparked that bench. Now, Juwan Gary also coming off the bench. So you kind of heard the splits there. The Nebraska played much better, or you could say played much better with Wilcher and Gary and kind of the backups in the game. Hoiberg had some incredible moments there, 3 steals, a lot of effort plays off the bench as well. But you ended up getting some pretty big buckets and contributions from Rick Mass, 20 points, 8 rebounds, and Bryce Williams hitting some big ones there late, 17 points and 9 rebounds. So
Mass only had 6 points at half.
Yeah.
6 points, 3 of 7, just looked like he wasn't involved, similar to the same game before that, where he only took 5 shots. But then he got aggressive. He started to get on the attack. That's what we need to see consistently out of Rick Mass. Got on the attack, got bodies, got to the jump hook, started working out, putting, a little bit of Akeem Olajuwon on the inside, a little half spin. He worked out. Then the 3 started falling. That stretched the team. You saw on one of his drives, caught the ball just above the just above the elbow. CJ Wilcher's in the corner, wide open on the right-hand side. Right-hand drives. Klesmit doesn't even come off CJ, and it gave him an opportunity to have all that space for scores. That's what they do if they happen to make shots. And they did all of this without Tominaga even arriving in the building. 2 points.
Pretty much. Yeah, Tominaga had a rough day on his birthday. 1 of 7 from the floor. From the floor. 0-4 from the 3-point arc, just 2 points. But it's interesting too, because obviously if you would have said that going in the game, you said, okay, well, there's a little bit of trouble. But it's interesting too, on Nebraska at times, and they really did kind of use that bench a lot. Both Tominaga and Lawrence, their minutes did kind of get taken away in the second half by the Garys, the Wilchers, the Hoibergs that were putting in a little bit more. It's not to say that you're not going to need them later on, but at times, and especially when we've said this before with Tominaga and his size, if he's not hitting, you might find somebody that can, and they found CJ tonight. Now, the other thing about this too, and I was looking at the season stats, is you're going to have a little bit of race between CJ and Tominaga about who's going to hit the most threes. Wilcher actually has more made on the season now at a higher clip. So what is it about Wilcher? He's a guy that I don't think it was guaranteed that this role was going to come to him. He's had to kind of fight for his spot his whole career here. Kind of had ups and downs as far as if he's making his 3, kind of seen as a maybe streaky shooter here and there. He's been streaky as of late, but it's all been good streak. Well, what do you think's kind of been the difference in Wilcher and a shooter and catching that fire?
Well, Al Cush said it on the YouTube stream. CJ is the best 6 man in the Big Ten. I think he's awesome too. I think I would agree with him on that. One of the things about CJ is he's embraced the role. He took on the role. He understands what coaches and staff asked of him, and he's prepared himself for it each and every night. So therefore, he knows what's expected out of him. He knows his minutes are going to be there. He knows to come in. He's worked on areas, understood the offense, began to see and pick spots in where he knows where his shots can come from, or certain plays where he knows if he comes off and he's got to look. And I can tell that he's understood that, because when he's coming off with an eye, and then he's not forcing it like he's done in the past. Earlier in his career, CJ Wilcher may have fired off some of those shots, but he's now got there, seen it's not for him, maybe took a shot fake and got back into it and found it later on in the offense.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it just shown his improvement, shown his growth, and CJ's definitely saved them tonight.
Well, and it's interesting. It's not just tonight because, like I said, he's been hot consistent as of late.
Yeah.
But tonight, especially, he's at a point in his career where the final possession they didn't have, and this is regulation, where they didn't have any timeouts left. They did some offensive decent fits and substitution, and so he wasn't out there for the final shot. And again, early in his career, you might think, well, okay, they kind of make their choice, and sometimes he's not going to be a part of it. I was just thinking, man, one more timeout, and he's definitely out there, and he's probably taking the shot. So that's just kind of the night that CJ Wilcher had, historic to make quite a bit of a comeback. We talked about Rink Mess, that big three that Fred drew up late to use Wilcher as kind of the screener, so there was no able to get off on him. Now Mess still had to hit the deep three after missing so much early on.
Well, stepped off on the one too.
On
the big fella.
He did. What I mean, in a lot of time, you could just say it's kind of a make or miss game. Is that what was going on for Nebraska? I mean, because they had a lot of good 3-point looks early in this game. They're a 3-point shooting team. They just weren't hitting any of them.
Well, one thing you can say for sure is that once they got back into the game and watching CJ catch fire, the crowd you weren't there, Bach, but when I tell you they were raucous, it went to a whole nother octave. Once that happened, you can see the intensity of the team began to get going. One of the things that I think they have to learn is they have to learn to drub that up by themselves. That's where I think they struggle on the road, is that they don't internally within the group or within the five or within the team, they don't know how to, pump and prime each other to get it going on the road. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that they have to figure out, because the crowd was phenomenal tonight, and they gave them a good spark and great energy to get back in this game.
Well, you just think about how much energy and how much just momentum and all of that that we're going to be looking forward to this next game, compared to at halftime where it was like, you just got your lunch money taken from you and beaten up, and any other way you could say it on the road, your past game. And then it looked like that was going to happen here. And then you got to go on the road again. And that second half, again, could be a program changing, season defining and season changing second half as well. You don't want to get ahead of yourselves, but you talk about big wins on the resume. That is certainly it. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to continue celebrating Nebraska's 80-72 victory over Wisconsin. It took overtime to get there. Took a big second half to get there, but the Huskers got it done. I'm Jake Bakoven, joined by Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet Erick Strickland. We'll take a quick break here on the Hoops Postgame Show, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Hoops Postgame Show, sponsored by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, who, by the way, saw their sign on the broadcast as well. Some signage in the Haymarket working out for some of those shots on television. So good for Action to get some action there. Nebraska with an 80-72 victory in overtime over the Wisconsin Badgers, the number 6 Wisconsin Badgers, who is one of the hottest teams in college basketball. So it's a big win for Nebraska in so many different ways. Strick, what does it kind of mean as you're looking at the Big Ten standings we were talking about during the break? Nebraska kind of climbing in I know a lot of people keep close eye on these things, kind of climbing their way up the Big Ten with another big win at the top.
One thing that Nick and I were talking on the block earlier today. We were talking about the Big Ten standings and how there's just a huge hodgepodge of everybody sitting and hovering around that 500 mark. 5-5. They were like when we came into the night, 1, 2, 3, 4. There were like 5 teams like tied at that fifth slot, and everybody's coming by and just join this wonderful win. But what this win did for them, Bach, it wasn't just a huge resume win. It wasn't just a win against a top 10 team. It keeps them hovering without dropping, because literally a loss tonight sends them dang near down, possibly 8th place, 9th place, just that quick. One loss. So that's why that win was even more important to get it as well, because now they're hovering, they're 5 all by themselves. They got to play Northwestern in a few weeks. They're already 1 up on Northwestern. So any tie right now with Northwestern, they leapfrog them. But the big part about it, Bach, you want that 4 slot. You want 1 through 4.
Oh yeah.
Right now, Illinois and those guys are probably gonna fight it out. But you bring yourself even closer to Illinois by knocking them off this weekend if you can. But you want that 4 slot. Why? You get double bye in Big Ten tournament. The last half of your games, if you take care of Penn State, which is not, Penn State's at the bottom half, under 500 in the conference, 4-6. You got Michigan twice. They're 2-8 in conference, home and away. You get revenge on Rutgers coming into your building. And you got the Iowa Hawkeyes that also come in, right? You get them, you get them one more time, right?
And Ohio State team that you beat pretty squarely on the road, but still.
So that's what the schedule looks like, right?
Yeah.
So you still got an opportunity. Do you get Maryland again?
I don't believe so. They get Indy. They get Indiana.
Indy one more time. They got to go on the road. That could be another potential quad 1 road win. And if you get one of those, Northwestern, even if you lose to the Illini, you get Northwestern or Indiana, I think your resume's set. You know, but make sure you're in the mid-tier minimum of the Big Ten tournament. Minimum.
Yeah, it's interesting as Nebraska kind of, if you turn your focus to the next 2 road games, 2 road games at Illinois and at Northwestern. Those are probably the toughest games remaining because, as you mentioned, as I look down those final games here, how many are there? I mean, count them as I say them. You'd have Michigan at home, Penn State at home, at Indiana, Minnesota at home, at Ohio State, Rutgers at home, and at Michigan. So that's your final 7 games. I believe only Indiana being outside of maybe the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten. So yeah, a lot of opportunity there, but it's such a tough stretch that they have right now that's why I understand why you were saying maybe get a split. But I mean, still, they've got some tough games ahead of them. But tonight, obviously, you want to celebrate. And it's interesting too because it's not just the Big Ten standings. As I said before, I'm interested where Nebraska kind of gets into the conversation of nationally because Illinois, and a lot of it will depend on Illinois. They won't get another top 25 ranking until after that Illinois game. So we'll have to see, what kind of happens there. But Nebraska, like Wisconsin's 16-6, or Wisconsin's number 6 in the nation. They're now 16-5. Nebraska not unranked, and they're 16-6. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of 4, 5, 6 loss teams, not just bunched up in the Big Ten. It's a bunch up in college basketball and in the top 25. And you just want to be one of those teams because you never know who can get hot at the right time. And maybe it could be Nebraska. We continue to say if the national tournament, NCAA tournament was played in Pinnacle Bank Arena, you might have some national champs right there.
Yeah, and I guarantee if you look at some of those records, Nebraska's schedule rankings, I bet their wins, their quad wins, they measure up with anybody in there.
Yeah,
they measure up. I mean, outside of the top teams in the country, but they measure up.
Yeah.
So I like where they're at. I still think there's some work to be done, but it's getting that monkey off your back on that road. You got to figure out a way to do it. Even if you come up short in Illinois, you got to figure out from Northwestern on down how to get 1 or 2. 1 or 2. I think if you break through 1, you get kind of it's like a confidence thing that comes with it. Yep. Then you can start probably seeing compound. I remember when I was playing, we were kind of in the middle of the pack and struggling a little bit. And we went on the road and we got a couple just on the road. I think we went to Hilton, got 1, and then it just we started rolling. We won 6 out of the last 7. It can happen like that. This team is capable, but they've got to hone in, focus, and they've got to break down some of the issues that they're having with the turnovers. Because listen, when they were at halftime, they were 23-10 in rebound margin.
Yeah, it's rough.
It was ugly.
Rebounding was bad again, yeah.
But then they only ended up down by about 10.
Yeah.
So that they saved themselves there, but they've got to work on those turnovers. Turnovers is one area, but they forced turnovers tonight. Yeah. So that was a good thing.
Season high turnovers for Wisconsin. Not all of them being completely forced, but some of them were 16 turnovers actually by the Badgers. And now we got some questions off the text line. I'll kind of group them together so we can kind of get to you. I see you clicking on a few of them. Ryan says, switch the lineup Sunday to give us a spark on the road. He also said, Sam and CJ, completely different team with those two on the floor, need to start. So kind of some questions there. I think with a team like this, it's not always important who's starting, but who's getting starters minutes. And CJ Wilcher's certainly making an argument for that. Would you consider putting him in the starting lineup? You don't think? Yeah.
No.
The flow's going well now.
I've talked about this before, and I said, okay, there's been guys that like, for example, Jason Terry in the NBA. There's been some other Kelvin Martin, other guys
just great off the bench. Just heaters.
Listen,
yeah.
Jamal Crawford,
yeah,
guys like that. They know their niche. They're spark guys. That's what they know in their mind. They know what they're gonna do. They know when their time frame is. They know how many minutes they're gonna get. They know when they're gonna come into the game, and they're locked in on that. That's the thing that they need to stay focused on is CJ. CJ needs to stay focused on doing what he needs to do coming off the bench. Leave him there. Yeah. Let him finish games. Let him, work. But his mind is set on where he's comfortable, and that's coming off the bench.
Sweet Lou Williams, another one.
Sweet Lou, that's it.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, Lou Williams.
So that's kind of interesting. I do think that he's again playing himself into starters minutes. And it'll just kind of depend too. I mean, if Tominaga's having an off night, obviously Wilcher can kind of fill that role for them. Nebraska, by the way, now 14-1 at home. That's the best record as far as total wins in the Big Ten. Only Purdue at 11-0 has a better winning percentage than Nebraska at home in the Big Ten. So, man, it's a tough place to get the victory. And it's kind of funny, too, because I did go to the first half of the game as well, and just kind of watching how it started. And again, Nebraska was missing shots. Just couldn't get anything to fall. AJ Storr had like the first 10 points of the game, or at least the first 10 points for Wisconsin. And, I was watching these cows come down from the Chick-fil-A, and I was just thinking, like, all right, what are we going to talk about on the post-game show if this score continues, if it continues to be kind of a blowout? And they did such a good job. I mean, Chucky Heckburn, as soon as they got him back in the game, we talked about earlier, his little run that he did. Wisconsin, just a tough team to hang in there with, but Nebraska finally gets it done and is able to come back, like you said, at halftime down 43-27. Whereas that rebound 23-10. Turnovers only at 7-6, but the field goal percentage shooting was pretty rough comparison. 55% in the first half from the Badgers, 38% for Nebraska.
And they were lucky to only be down. It's only 16.
Well, and it finished too with Nebraska better field goal shooting percentage because of what they did in the second half at 45%, and Wisconsin just really struggling at 42%. And they've had halves. Like they had this 43-point half. In Madison, they had a 55-point half against Nebraska. What did you see much change with the Badgers, the way they were defending them? Because they only scored 24 after the break in the second half, and then 5 in overtime.
I'm just gonna talk about a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
One, Nebraska is like 22-1 in Hoiberg's era when they reach 80.
You've mentioned it before. Yeah,
let's stay on that, because I've always said the more and the closer they get to the upper 70s, I didn't think they were going to get there tonight. So I knew it was going to either be a knockdown, drag out game. I didn't think they could get there, but then they caught fire. But here's the other part. I've always talked to, if you always hear me, one of the things I'm going to talk about, whether it be on my shows or here on the post game, is the differentials. If you look at the differentials, they points in the paint, you see a lot of equal stuff. Equal there, equal in the field goal, equal in the three. I'm always know that Nebraska's going to have that. But where they win the differentials, if they win 3 or more differentials, they usually are going to win a game. They win free throw shooting, okay, in a pretty good margin. They end up only having 12 turnovers. To me, it felt like 20. It felt like it was 20. But they win that differential by a small margin. Don't lose big on the rebounds, which was okay. Offensive rebounds didn't get killed. Second chance points, even. Bench points, huge differential, 34-10. That's one. Points in the paint, which is the surprise. Where's the advantage for Wisconsin? Inside.
Yeah. They didn't go to it a lot.
They didn't go to it. And Greg Gard's going to be disappointed about that. And look, everything else is equal. Steals, blocks, but the assist number, that's another differential. They won 3. They usually win 3 or more differentials without getting killed on any other. They win games.
Somebody's asking too, and I wanted to get to an answer on this. Jessica saying, Casey is my favorite player. However, he's kind of been a non-factor. Why? Just simply kind of shooting with him, because his size makes it kind of tough for him to really get into it. And it's not just shooting, but offensively. I mean, he can get the floater rolling or something. But yeah, I mean, he got to the point where they didn't play him too much.
2 things are going on with Casey for me. He's pulling strings. You're a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls the string way too much. There's inconsistency with string pulls. And if you don't play basketball, you may not know what I'm talking about. When Casey shoots, if you're watching on the stream, when Casey shoots, a lot of his shots, it's shoot and pull. He's doing like this. So he's really just slinging the shot. When you're struggling with shooting, this is your stuff's all got to be like this. Everything you shoot, straight up and down, follow through.
Make sure it's at least not mechanically.
Make sure you're mechanically sound. And that's what Casey's been doing. He gets away with it sometimes because he'll hit shots, and then all of a sudden you start doing that. I used to do it as a young high school player, but then my coach had to get on me about that. He's got to stop pulling strings. He needs to follow through. He needs to go straight up and down or going in a little bit, because a lot of the stuff he's shooting now is floating. So he's shooting and floating. He's doing a lot of floating. So, and he had 3 good looks today. When you miss those, your confidence can get shot. Yeah, I mean, because they're flying at him, shot fake, steps to the side. Those are butt naked. You know what I mean? If you're a shooter butt naked, you should hit those shots at a clip of at least 8 out of 10. Minimum 7. Butt naked.
Yeah.
And that if you want to be a pro,
yeah,
I mean, that's what you're gonna have to do.
Yeah. And I mean, there's going to be some games where he's just, kind of out of it. And again, you got to at least give Fred Hoiberg credit for not, sitting on it and trying to make it work. He found some different lineups to get out there and get Nebraska back in this game. The other thing I wanted to question you about, and it's, it's been years and years that we continue to ask this question, but the fans don't forgive. Chucky Hepburn, every time he was touching the ball, was getting boos again. Do you have a problem with that, or does that kind of fuel the competitor in Chucky Hepburn a little bit, you think? Because it didn't seem to bother him. He's a heck of a player.
Yeah, Chuck's a heck of a player. Greg was in here for WTF. His dad came in and got on our show. So if you want to take a look at him, it's a great interview. We talked about, his process, why he chose what he chose. You can understand because he's a local kid, but there was just a lot of things that just happened at that time. You got to understand that there was a coaching change, kind of got to him late. It was a lot of circumstances that kind of came with that. It wasn't that he didn't like Nebraska or didn't want to come to Nebraska, but you want to try to get in somebody's head. So I can understand why they would boo, or whatever the case may be.
Well, to his credit, he's been a thorn in Nebraska's side ever since getting in Madison as well.
Well, you saw he was doing that with his defense.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just what he does. He's a hawk. So, yeah, I mean, it's okay.
Well, and I mentioned it too. They had, he had his own run here. They had 3 different players in Storr, Klesmit, and Hepburn score 10 plus points in a row for Wisconsin. And it wasn't like through 4-minute draws. It was quick. Wisconsin was on the go, type of situation. You're just thinking, man, what can they do? And it was wildly entertaining when Klesmit was doing it because Wilcher was doing it on the other side, and they were guarding each other. So there was a bit of talk back and forth about anything you can do, I can do better type of thing going on. That was very entertaining. Again, there's so many so much to break down in this game of the back and forth eventually, but the big comeback that had to be had, the missed shots early. How about officiating? We always get it. There's always some questions about officiating. There was some boos. There was some BS chants. Sorry to the children in the audience, but that's what the student section was rolled with today. Did you have too much problem with the ref name?
The big one, was masked going vertical, and they call that they're in the block from Bryce. Being a referee, yes, I know sometimes we miss them, but boy, those guys are getting paid a whole lot of money to kind of get that close to missing some of this. Listen, I said it on a tweet, but boy, oh boy, Wisconsin literally could have traveled literally. And when I'm saying travel, I'm not talking about the fact that they got on a plane and they flew to Lincoln.
Yeah.
I'm saying they could have traveled
before their first dribble. Yeah.
To Madison and walked all the way to Madison without taking the bus. Like it was unbelievable how much they traveled tonight. I'm talking about like by rule.
Yeah.
Jump, stop, steps, travel by rule. And those guys are missing stuff like that. I mean, Wall freaking walked from the Pinnacle Bank Arena to the Haymarket half the time.
Yeah.
Shoot, it was crazy.
Well, Nebraska did, at least for those that are frustrated with their officials. They did get the free throw advantage tonight, 26-12 as far as attempts. They were 19 of 26, the usual pretty solid self, 73% from the line, while Wisconsin just 8 of 12 in that category. Jeremy says he almost asked me what I thought about the game tonight. I ran into Jeremy earlier on O Street. Said, good thing I didn't jinx it. Yeah, that's probably, maybe we would have jinxed it earlier. It's on O Street. It's close enough. You don't want to do that. Jessica says it has got to be hard to play at Pinnacle Bank Arena, and PBA is definitely going to get more credit from the talk shows, and especially you watch BTN as one of the most difficult places to play in the Big Ten. She says, what was it like playing in loud venues, Strick?
Oh, it was tough. I mean, playing the Antlers were probably one of the craziest playing in Missouri. Playing at Oklahoma State, it was like they were on top of you. Pause. You know what I mean? But it was really like they were like right there on you.
Yeah.
Like you step out of bounds to throw the ball, they're like right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of like Duke.
Yeah, it was very much like Cameron.
Yes,
it was like that. That was a wild place. Oklahoma was really kind of chill. But Hilton, Iowa State, yes, sir. Raucous.
Yeah.
And then Fog Allen was always tough.
Yeah.
They get to saying that Rock, Chalk, Jayhawk, KU, and they start doing all that.
Yeah. It's like a church
wild.
or something in there, too.
It's like a freaking cult.
It's crazy. Nebraska does get the win, 80-72. We've got to take one more break, then we'll wrap things out here on the Hoops Postgame Show. Once again, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. We'll do that with the Husker Hall of Famer Erick Strickland coming up next. Back on the Hoops Postgame Show here on 93.7. The Ticket Huskers, a big-time victory, 80-72 over the big bad Wisconsin Badgers, who seem to have Nebraska's number in football and volleyball and mostly basketball, but not tonight. Tonight, Nebraska's got their number, so a big victory. We will get to the phone lines. We have Quentin, who wants to ask about Rink Mass, but first I do want to also talk with Nick Sainert, who was at the game and obviously is celebrating the victory along with us.
Gentlemen. Stricky, correct me if I'm wrong. I understand I'm younger. I was at Snow Sit Sunday, though, and I remember it vividly. That was the best environment that I've ever been a part of.
I have to agree.
And that tops Snow Sit Sunday.
I wasn't there.
I wouldn't go that far.
The aftermath.
Maybe the aftermath.
Even during the game, when they were making their run.
When in the midst of the run, maybe not tops No Sit Sunday, but it is the closest thing. That blew the Purdue game out of the water. That's what I would say.
I would have to agree.
And I asked multiple people that there, and they all agreed.
But remember, Purdue wasn't full because students weren't there.
Students weren't there. The weather wasn't the greatest.
Right.
Yeah.
But this one,
I would say No Sit Sunday. It was like $250 to get in.
It was
like $14 to get in tonight.
I understand, like maybe not the build up and maybe not the reward, the instant reward and gratification at the end. But guys, I'm sure maybe you guys saw the graphic that BTN put on the screen that when Wisconsin led by 15 plus 120-0.
That's crazy.
It was incredible.
And we're 1-60.
You're sweating a bit. Were you part of the court storming?
No. I walked.
Oh.
Well, no, honestly, I was fine. I wasn't sweating up until I ran across the window, pumping up the crowd. Pumping up the crowd. So
you didn't get a court storm.
No. I ran straight back for Greg Gard and Fred Hoiberg.
Yeah.
One of those was more enjoyable than the other.
Well, can you do a quick wrap up before we get to the phones on each of them?
Oh, well, so yeah, Greg Gard, he was very disappointed, understandably so, right? He was very adamant that they took too many jump shots. Greg Gard said that. He felt like Crowell needed to get more aggressive with it, right? That's a guy that's put up a lot of points on Rink Mass in his career. And he at one point had 0 points and 10 rebounds. And I think he only took 2 shots all game long. Yeah. And so Nebraska got away with that one a little bit. Fred was, praised for his players. He said that he's like, that's the most animated I've ever been towards my team and at halftime and stuff. And so he's like, listen, we didn't know how they would respond, and they responded well. He got asked a question about the NCAA tournament, and he said, we're on to Saturday, and let's just hope we've played better on against Illinois than we've ever played on the road. So there you go.
Well, there you go. There's a wrap up of the post games press conferences from each coach. Let's go to Quentin here on the hotline. Quentin, are you there?
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Well, hopefully you're celebrating a victory. Did you have a question for Strick?
No. Well, Strick, with your time in the NBA, I just think Rink has just a really good body control. I've been a big guy, all my career, and he's using his body to guard and defend and just do a little hook. I just think that he's one. I'd compare him to Marich did a really good job, and he just uses his body really well to do both. A gem in today's world where everybody's just offensive. I think he just does both really well. But you could speak more to that, but huge win by the Huskers today. Take care of business at home, solidifies going into the tourney, I think, and we'll see what happens after that.
There it is.
Thanks for the call.
There it is. Listen, Rink Mass with his abilities to shoot, anybody that can stroke it, there's guys like Brian Scalabrine and, that played in the NBA and had some great years. Anytime you can stroke it, you've got a chance to make it in the NBA. If you got a burner, he can shoot. I think it'll even be better once he gets his knee back fully. He's still playing on a recovering knee. But also I would say he just athletically, he probably is going to be a better fit for European ball, to be honest, because here's why. You're not going to be able to guard guys like that in the NBA. He's not going to be able to guard Embiid, Giannis, I love him. He's not going to be able to guard Jokic.
Right.
He can handle some guys here because I still don't even think Zach Edey's going to be a pro.
Right.
At the NBA level, just because of the way that he plays. Now, if Zach Edey could do what Rink does, Zach Edey's got a spot. I just don't think that's the case. Now, that's the only reason I'll say is because these guys, AD, and you should start looking at guys that he would have to face. The athleticism and just the abilities. I don't think he has enough of the lift that you would need to get to the next level. Now, Jokic don't really have it, but Jokic is 7 foot.
Yeah. And of course, it's not always just about getting to the NBA. Rink Mass has another year here at Nebraska as well.
He does. So. And he can work on it.
I think he plays with a lot of grace. He's smooth for as big as he is. And I was telling somebody's pregame.
His passing is awesome.
I was telling somebody pregame, Nebraska just hasn't had a big man that's smooth. And as generic and as basic and as maybe general that sounds, it's a luxury for Nebraska to have that, and it's a good thing that they were utilizing it tonight.
No doubt. He's not a bruiser like Marich and those guys like that.
But man, he held his own, and give him credit. There's been games where Krause dropped 38 or 40 points on him, and in times before Rink was at Nebraska, right at Bradley, and so. To hold him to what he did tonight, you're not going to be able to hold him without rebounds. But Nebraska, hey, it doesn't matter how you do it, you won. That's a big one. That's a big one.
We're going to talk about it tomorroore because we talked about this win and how important it was for the standings. We'll get into it tomorrow.
Somebody told me I was on my hippie lettuce earlier today. I'm staying on it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of hippie lettuce and fun downtown in Lincoln.
The places are packed.
Yeah.
I was tempted, Stricky.
I know you were.
Walked in, I'm like, everybody gets one.
Well, thanks to Nick Sander for joining the show tonight. Thanks for the callers and everybody for staying up late with us. And of course, thanks to Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet Erick Strickland. Huskers get the big victory, second big victory over a top 10 team this year at home with the 80-72 win over the Badgers. They've now have wins over the 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten. The one team they don't have a win over, that's in the top 4 in the Big Ten, is Illinois, and they'll get their shot at them on Sunday on the road, 5:30 tip-off, and we will be here for post-game afterwards. Thanks for joining us. Go out there and celebrate, and go Big Red.
Problem gambling is not just a financial issue. It's an emotional problem with financial consequences. If your loved one is struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's